Okay, we are live here at Moneyline MMA, coming at you with action for UFC Abu Dhabi, which will be bringing us some daytime fights this Saturday. We've got the prelims beginning at 11 a.m. Central Time. Main card beginning around 2 p.m. Central Time. Keep in mind, these fights will be occurring during the day at the Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi. Of course, headlined by one of the famous Nurmagomedov siblings and disciples from Dagestan, Russia, fighting Corey Sandhagen. A fight that does not, of course, have a belt on the line, but huge implications for the bantamweight division, really, going forward. Both these guys, I guess technically Umar's ranked 6. Kind of depending, at least according to Tapology. I'm not sure what UFC has him at on their website, but this really is getting closer and closer to what is pretty much just a title contender match. Whoever wins this may or may not have the next shot for the belt. So we shall see what can happen in that main event in Abu Dhabi. Before we get too deep into our picks for this Saturday, let's discuss last Saturday, in which Jose and I both had fantastic nights for UFC 304. Really, the only shortcoming being that sadly Jose did lose his 5-weight pick on Leon Edwards, but still we both go 4-1. It's really hard to complain about that. I continue the heat with the 5 weights. Arnold Allen was my 5-weight. He gets the job done. It wasn't quite as flashy as you might have wanted it to be for a pay-per-view, but I pretty much predicted as such. I said KO or points for Arnold Allen, and it ended up being points. I think he kept walking forward, and although he didn't, like I said, annihilate Giga, he definitely was the better man in the cage and had himself a nice juicy burger in the post-fight press conference, excuse me. So I appreciated that. But outside of that, man, Aspinall getting the job done. I know Jose's wishing he made Aspinall his 5-weight in the first round. I mean, it kind of looked like Curtis Blades tripped or something. So it's not like he absolutely made Curtis Blades knocked out cold or twitching. Curtis Blades was fully conscious and arguably didn't even get hurt. It was just because he was on his stomach in a terrible position. He would have just gotten punched for 4 straight minutes until he lost consciousness. So the fight had to be stopped 100%. But you just wonder what would happen if you got a rematch in that. I'm not saying Curtis Blades would have won, but I do think the fight doesn't finish that soon in every instance. I think we see a couple scenarios where that goes more than at least one round. But wow, 2 times the UFC has locked Aspinall and Blades in the UFC cage, and combined they haven't even gotten to like 1 total minute worth of fighting time. That's pretty crazy. That's just what heavyweights do. Outside of that, I think the last 2 main points, got to discuss Paddy real quick. Had a great fight. Did exactly, I guess I was like, he did what he needed to, yes, but it's like Bobby Green goes for the takedown. Like, I don't know. I've heard some more experienced fighters answer to that. Like, they don't think Bobby Green was really in the moment thinking like, oh, I can't shoot on Paddy. He's just in the moment fighting, doing what fighters do, right? But a consummate professional needs to know his opponent's strengths and not put himself in those bad positions. And I just really think the ball was dropped there by Bobby King Green, and he had an opportunity. He let it go. Paddy came out victorious. Jose, I don't know about you, but I'm still looking to fade Paddy eventually. But until then, we're going to continue to get him on the win column for us in our weights.
Yeah, it's difficult. Like, it's someone you want to see lose, like to some degree, like similar to Conor McGregor back in the day, but he just keeps winning, so it's hard to deny him. That's actually the reason why I did go with Patty, was because I thought Bobby Green was going to be the toughest challenge he was going to have yet. But I'm like, it's just Patty. He just keeps finding ways to win. And I did question his striking, but obviously he didn't even really do much of that in this fight. And he left it all to the grappling, which we did, though, mention on the show, too, that if he wins, it's going to be most likely via submission, which he did end up pulling off. So that aspect we did call correct as well. And I mean, Patty's just, he's doing what I think he's going to be doing, is just keep getting better, kind of like a Sean O'Malley route. And he may be doing this faster than Sean O'Malley, to be honest. Like, we could see Patty being a top 5 guy, definitely within the next 2 years for sure, depending on how active he is. but he's been getting better. That submission he just pulled over King Green looked clean, really really clean and technical, and just shows how good he is in other aspects that people question. His striking, I think, could definitely improve, but he's really hard to deny right now. Like him or hate him, he just keeps winning.
Yeah, that's honestly a great way to put it. It's so true. He just keeps finding ways to make it work, whether or not we like it. And to that point, we're gonna have to continue to bet on him, as whether or not we like it, until we find a reason not to. Um, but I do just want to make the note while we're talking about Patty. I don't want to turn it into the Patty show, but now that he's a ranked fighter, Dana said it himself. He's going to be ranked because he beat a ranked opponent. He's ranked 15 or 14, right? So who truly is his next matchup? Let me run it down for you quick. Grant Dawson's currently scheduled to fight Rafa Garcia on October 12th. Benoit Saint Denis is scheduled to fight Renato Moicano, and Dan Hangman Hooker is scheduled to fight Mateusz Gamrot. They're, of course, Michael Chandler's supposed to fight Connor. What I'm getting at is, outside of like the top five, right? There's like no lightweights that are a step up for Patty to fight right now, besides like Jalen Turner. You know what I mean? And that's really it. Jalen Turner, like Rafael Fiziev. Dude, come on. Patty's not beating. Am I crazy? Patty's not beating Rafael Fiziev right now.
Definitely, yeah. Rafael's striking is definitely a lot better than Patty's. The only dudes, because he's going to be in the top 15 after beating Green. It makes sense, yeah. Either RDA or Jalen Turner being the next two guys he fights. Benoit Saint Denis would have been an exciting fight too, but like you mentioned, he's taken up maybe Dan Hooker, unless Dan Hooker has
fighting
an opponent.
August, and he's fighting
Gamrot, okay, yeah.
next
So
month.
yeah, other than that, anyone else is a big jump. Even like Renato Moicano, he's going to be a pretty big jump for, at least a decent sized jump for Patty. And anyone before in front of Renato, yeah, no. Max Holloway, Rafael Fiziev, Beneil Dariush, probably the only other guy I can think of. But that being said, yeah, not many dudes, but I can think of these three: RDA, Jalen Turner, and the biggest jump, Beneil Dariush, are the three dudes that would probably make the most sense for Patty.
Yeah, Dariush as well. I thought about Dariush myself, but Dariush would provide like a unique challenge for Patty, and I would also be betting on Dariush. I actually think, depending on how you look at it, like Dariush is actually a top 10, so that would actually be a real big step up for Patty. And I don't know, Benny has really good jiu-jitsu. I wouldn't expect Patty to be able to submit him very well, and I think Benny's striking would be better. That would be interesting though. But I don't want to keep dwelling on Patty. We'll see who they end up. As fun as that matchmaking discussion is, we can maybe add a show to the list of things we do here for Moneyline MMA on another recording. But for this recording is obviously specifically for our weights and our picks on the next fight. But my last comment here on the card is, of course, Mokaev. We have to discuss Mokaev mainly because Jose and I both pick him and get the win. But Dana afterwards says that the PFL is gonna get a good fighter in reference to him. Find that to be quite brutal and interesting, and just like kind of a note, like UFC fighters, like there's this dialogue about all the matchmakers told them to not do so many takedowns, blah blah blah. Like, okay, they might have made a comment, like Dana admitted, but in all reality, it's all the crap that Mokaev was doing up to and before the fight. They had this whole beef, him and Cop did, where they had this issue with the Performance Institute, and one guy hit another, and that's why Mokaev apparently had the stitching on his eyebrow area against the Perez fight. And then the whole thing with Mokaev and Cop taking a picture and posting it to social media. Yeah, that was Mokaev admitted to a reporter that he did that just to get next to Cop so he could sucker punch him. So wait. You're a professional fighter and you're sucker punch. Dude, that just actually made me lose a lot of respect for the man, because, like, dude, you're a professional fighter. If you have a problem with somebody, then say it to him. He took a picture with him in jest so that so that Cop could turn around. He didn't even do it in his face. He did it to the back of his head, man. I can't believe, like, I'm with Cop on that. What kind of Muslim are you, dude? That's wild, man. The disrespect, and he's just like a 23-year-old idiot. I am totally with Dana on that. And part of my rant, but man, I'm totally with Dana. Get that guy the hell out of the MMA. Get UFC. He needs to learn somewhere else, man. That's crazy. You can't be doing that. You're a professional. That's all I gotta say, man.
Yeah,
Yikes.
yeah, 100%. When I saw that too, like, of hearing like the cheap shot afterwards and stuff, like definitely changed my tone a bit how I see him. Because I
Hmm.
thought like I thought it was like, dang, this is unfair. But it does really show like what Dana was saying. Like there's definitely things that are going on behind the scenes that no one else is really seeing that
Yeah.
Makayev is like doing. So
Yeah.
yeah, enough to let an undefeated fighter in the UFC go, which is crazy.
Yeah, and it's not even to mention everybody's well aware of all this bullshit that they do. And you know, I'm part of my French, but it's just all this garbage that they do leading up to the fight. He's throwing water bottles at Cop, and they can't even face off because they're so mad at each other. And then they get in the cage and just do some of this for 4.5 minutes, and then for 30 seconds they actually wrestle. Like, dude, what is going on, man? Just a whole bunch of fucking talk, no walk, no respect at all. I felt like I could have been in there with Mokayev and still not even had to worry about getting finished. It would have been the same outcome. It's just boring. Horrible fight. Awful. So that being said, love Dana's anger going into this press conference saying I'm never doing bonuses again. It didn't mean anything. I totally agree. There were 7 straight decisions. How average for a pay-per-view card that has a double bonus payout. How average. We're going to move on to our picks for this Saturday, though. Reminder that it is daytime picks. Cards starting around 2 p.m. Central Time. Just as a recap for us here at Moneyline MMA, Jose and I make our picks 5-to-1 weight order. We take 5 fights on UFC Abu Dhabi and weigh them in order of confidence. 5 is the most confident pick. 1 is the least confident pick. We're going to start with my most confident pick, which, as a reminder, is on an 11 fight streak, 11 card streak, whatever you want to call it, 11 week streak. My 5 weights have now won 11 times in a row. We're going to make it 12. And on top of that, I will not take the man that you were probably expecting me to. I'm going to avoid the easy pick here. I'm going to go with a little bit of a curveball, but not really. I'm still taking a favorite, just not necessarily by far the biggest favorite on the card. Again, I think most of you already know who I'm probably discussing, but my 5-weight most confident pick of Saturday afternoon is actually going to be Davison Figueiredo. He's coming to fight. He's coming to fight Chito Vera, and man, this is kind of a stacked card that isn't paid for. This is one of the more stacked cards that is free, and it is a fight night. I was kind of impressed to see a lot of the names on this list. Of course, former champion Figgy is fighting Cheeto, who's just got a chin of steel, and I find this to be an interesting matchup. I expect Figgy to play into his wrestling a decent amount. It's something that he seems to use pretty heavily, at least in his 2 fights so far against Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt. He's done pretty well for himself coming up the division, and I expect that to continue as far as at least trying to attempt a couple takedowns. He'll land a couple as well. Cheeto Vera's takedown defense is listed at 70%, but I really don't think it's going to be too big of an issue. I think Cheeto gets taken down by anybody who really wants to take him down. You know, even Corey Sandhagen. Okay, Corey Sandhagen's wrestling. We'll probably discuss it at some point in the show because he's fighting Nurmagomedov. But in any case, Corey Sandhagen's wrestling isn't really that impressive, but he lands 3 of 12 attempts against Cheeto Vera. I think even if Figgy lands, say, half of his takedown attempts, he's still going to be able to win a round just from that alone, maybe even 2 rounds off of that. And on top of that, I think Cheeto Vera is a very slow, methodical, plotted fighter that likes to win with points. Cheeto Vera doesn't get many finishes, at least in my opinion. He does have 18 finishes under his belt, which is 5 shy of his professional win total. So in all technicality, his finish percentage is extremely high. But in all statistically also, his last win, he's 1-2 in his last 3. His last win was a decision against Pedro Munoz. Come on, man. But I just don't think Cheeto Vera is exactly what we thought he could be when he went on that 4-fight win streak, capped off by the head kick knockout of Dominic Cruz. I just think also that there were a couple of older and fighters in there. His most respectable win still to this day, in my opinion, is Rob Font. And Rob Font's great, but Corey Sandhagen has shown, and Rob Font has fought, you know, kind of under what's the word I'm looking for? Just like not great. You know, he hasn't been impressive, under impressive at all. I mean, he's 1-4 in his last 5 as well. So that being said, man, I think Chito Vera starts off really slow here. I think Figgy gets round 1 just from that alone. Vera never comes out fast. He never comes out aggressive. Even if he does get a knockout like he did against Cruz or like he did against Frankie Edgar, those are in later rounds. Rounds 3, rounds 4. I think at least Figgy wins round 1. Most likely wins round 2. And this is only a 3-round fight. So at that point, Chito has to land a finish on Figgy. I don't see that happening. Anything's possible. Figgy's only been finished twice in his career. I just don't see that happening on Saturday afternoon. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. I have Figgy as my 5 weight as well. And yeah, I think Figgy's going to come in. He's going to be the more technical fighter in this one. He's going to overall just be better. The only thing I'm not too comfortable with, and Figgy is my 5 weight, but it's just that the size difference. He's 5'5" and Marlon Vera's 5'8". Marlon Vera also has a 2.5 reach advantage over Davison Figueiredo, and that's dangerous when you have a guy that throws a high volume of punches like Marlon Vera. He lands 4.31 significant strikes per minute, but he absorbs more though. He absorbs 5.48, so that's good for Figgy. He lands 3.01 significant strikes per minute and only absorbs 3.38. I think Figgy, it's going to be probably a slower start. I think he's gonna land on Marlon, but not right away. I think Marlon's going to be really good at keeping his distance and range, which can be problematic because, as you mentioned, he's not had a finish himself in a while. But Marlon Vera, like if he gets going and he starts landing a lot on Figueiredo, it could actually be a bad night for Figueiredo, and I can see it being lights out for him if he lets Marlon Vera get carried away. But that being said, I think Figgy is going to be the one more likely to initiate the takedown. And if he can just take Vera down and hold him down, that's all he needs to do. But I mean, obviously, to secure that win. But I think on the feet, it's going to be a more dangerous fight for Figgy. But that being said, I think he's going to come in more technical and have a better game plan to beat Marlon Vera. I think this is a weight class that Figueiredo, even though he's the smaller guy in this one, I think he's moving up obviously because he was a little too big for the flyweights. But that being said, here at bantamweight, I think he's just gonna move better. He looks like he's stronger, and when he's fought thus far at bantamweight, he has not looked like the smaller guy. So I don't think this fight will be different. I have Figgy winning this. I don't know if he'll finish Marlon, but I definitely have him winning by decision. So I agree with you. I think Figgy's gonna be the better fighter this one, and he is my 5 weight as well.
Yeah, dude. So I'm proud we both avoided the quote unquote easy 5-weight pick there on this card and went with a little bit more of an exotic to say, just because Figgy is also far from the biggest favorite on this card. He's minus 180 right now to Vera. Chito Vera's plus 140, so he still is the favorite at almost 200 or 2-1 odds. But I really think that's a fair price to pay here. Figgy has 9 submission wins and 9 TKO wins on his record. I think even if somehow, some way this does end up as a wrestling situation, even though Vera doesn't really attempt many takedowns, like I said, Figgy could. And I'm way more confident in Figgy being able to get that finish than Chito in really any asset of the game, whether it's KO, submission, or decision. Now, you do make a decent point that yes, Vera does have some power, and we have seen him utilize it in the past. But let's be real, man. It's been 2 years since he's gotten a KO win, and he's had a few instant fights since then that he just hasn't looked the greatest in. I don't know, man. Like, I gotta respect his chin. I don't think he's gonna get finished on the feet very easily, if at all. So personally, I like to also, with my 5-weight bets, usually I'll spruce in a little extra on top. And for this week, my little extra on top is going to be to take Figgy by submission or points. I think it's very unlikely that he finishes Chito on the feet, even if he lands some big strikes. If Sean's knee doesn't, excuse me. If Sean's knee doesn't, Figgy can't. No way.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. It's the thing is it's tough. Cheeto, he's never been submitted before though, in his career. He's always gone the distance.
Never been finished, submitted or KO'd.
Yeah, he's only gone the distance. So for me, yeah, that's why I'll probably stick with Figgy. I hear what you're saying. Because I think Figgy's definitely the better grappler in this case, and it may be his key to victory overall. But that being said, I'm sticking with Figgy too. I feel really good about him. But I think it's just going to be a masterclass unanimous decision. But who knows? Like, again, Vera's never been knocked out too. So if Figgy's going to finish it within the distance, yeah, I agree with you. It'd be submission.
Yeah, I know Cheeto's been around for a while, man. But like the further down I look, dude, in his tenure at the UFC, like there isn't really like you can tell me if I'm missing somebody, but there's really no one in here that really would like wrestle or pose a big submission threat. Like I'm just saying, like yeah, I get that Vera's never been finished, but he's only ever really submitted, I should say specifically. He's only ever really fought strikers and the kinds of guys that are not going to submit you at all. You know, Corey Sandhagen, Sean O'Malley, Dominic Cruz, Rob Font, Frankie Edgar, those dudes aren't going to submit you. That's crazy. Jose Aldo, Song Yadong, these dudes are all boxers, man. Um, yeah, so what I'm saying is I would make the point in that I think Figgy is the biggest submission threat fight that Cheeto's ever seen. I think nobody that Cheetos fought poses as big of a submission threat as Figgy, and that might not mean he gets a submission, but that's why I recommended the double chance, because if he doesn't get a submission in 15 minutes, you still win the bet. So sounds like Jose agrees though. We both got a 5 weight, so we definitely agree that Figgy will win. Jose might just not agree as much with the submission aspect and just the fact that money line is there. Therefore, we'll move on to Jose's 4 weight. Second most competent.
Yes, sir. And this is the middleweight bout between Shara Magomedov and Michael Olajaychuk. Right now, Shara is a big betting favorite at minus 280, while Michael Olajaychuk is the betting underdog at plus 210. This one, it was more of a last minute replacement in place of the Nick Diaz fight. But that being said, it's a good fight replacement. The Diaz and Vicente Luque fight, that is, and it's a good replacement. It's two high level strikers, and McCall Jacek obviously has been in the UFC longer than Shara, but he himself has an extensive kickboxing record. So I think this one's going to be fireworks on the feet. This one I'm going to lean a little more with the undefeated guy in Shara. He is my 4 way. I feel pretty good with them thus far. The only thing is like his grappling. It needs to get better to some degree, but I don't think it'll be much of a problem against Michael Jacek. Michael Jacek isn't again much of a grappler himself. Out of his 19 wins, he's only won one via submission, and but he's got 14 KO/TKOs. And while Shara, out of his 13 wins, 11 of them come via KO/TKO. So I think this one, it's safe to say that no matter who you go with on it, I don't know if it's going to go to the distance for sure. It's definitely going to end with a KO/TKO. And that being said, I'm liking Shara right now. Again, he's undefeated, while Michael Jacek, he just lost. He got submitted by Kevin Holland, and before that, he got just submitted as well right away by Michelle Pereira. But Michelle Pereira also came in just guns blazing and really stunned him first. So it wasn't like a technical submission that he sunk in like that. And that being said, if Shara were to get a submission, it'd be a similar way like that, where he would just overpower McCall Jacek with strikes and then get a submission. But again, I think this one is going to be Shara all the way via KO/TKO. And how they match up. Shara, physically, Shara is the taller guy. He's 6'2", but Michael Jacek is a big guy himself. He's 6 foot exactly. And Michael Jacek does have a 1-inch reach advantage. But again, both guys are just such high level strikers. I don't even think this reach advantage is going to mean anything. And Shara, he's not been in the UFC as much, so it doesn't look like he's been tagged as much. But he does get tagged. Michael Jacek is definitely gonna land some good strikes on him, I think, for sure. But I think at the end, ultimately, Shara is just going to be the more powerful fighter and come in and stop McCall Jacek within the distance. So this one, I feel good with Shara. It's a last-minute replacement fight, but that being said, I think he's just more than good enough where he did not need any more. Either guys did not need any more time to prepare for this fight. I think, I'm looking at both even like almost an even Steven fight, not a last minute thing where I feel bad for one or the other. I think this is a good matchup, and it's really going to show where Shara falls within the rankings, because now he's going to go against a guy that is striker that can match with him. But now let's see if it's going to bring out Shara's wrestling more too. So that being said, I got Shara winning this though. This one I feel confident enough to say KO/TKO. What are your thoughts on this fight, Nick?
So I do agree with Shara. I have him as my one weight right now. That's most likely going to stay. I think we haven't seen, or at least for me, I haven't seen enough out of Shara to really be willing to jump on that bandwagon personally. At least at the current price of minus 280 against who I think is a pretty respectable Mikhail Jacek. I mean, let me just be completely candid here. I think I would be picking Mikhail Jacek if it wasn't for the fact that Kevin Holland destroyed his arm like a month and a half ago or whatever that was. You know what I'm talking about? Kevin Holland had this dude in a freaking arm bar, and it looked like it was the Tony Ferguson arm bending in the wrong direction. And Olajaychuk's out here like, oh, it didn't break my arm, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, yo, like, are you, there's no way you're at 100%, dude. Like, maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe you're a robot, and you don't really have actual bones. You've replaced that elbow with some sort of, power steering, fluid joint or something that can just, I don't even know. But that's crazy because I like Olajaychuk. I like his power. I like his experience. I feel like he's seen a lot more power and talent on the other end of the octagon. I mean, shit, he's fought against Kyle Bahayo, who's I might as well be a title contender at this point. Dustin Jacoby has been doing really well lately. Michelle Pereira. I mean, geez, these are like some of the bigger prospects in this whole division that Olajaychuk's been stuck fighting against and getting finished, right? That's the main part, is that he's getting finished. He's not getting to decision with most of these guys. It's finish after finish after finish. He loses by a finish or wins by a finish. And that definitely makes me nervous. I think that is one thing, because with this fight, I kind of lean on over 1.5 rounds, but that's also just because in Shara's first fight in the UFC, what I saw against Antonio Tricoli is kind of a methodical approach. Yeah, he gets a left hook knockout win, but it was in round 3. He honestly could have got that knockout in round 1 or 2 if he really exerted himself, in my opinion. Like, it was there, and he didn't really do anything spectacular in round 3 above the fact that Tricoli was just like very clearly gassed out and done. Like, he had fought for 12 or 13 minutes by then. He wasn't in shape, and he was just ready to give up at that point. And I'm not trying to be an ass or anything like that, but it just, Tricoli, he hadn't fought in like 4 years. He just did not have the conditioning that you should have had to get in the UFC octagon. So I think Shara kind of, as you should, as you're getting eased into the UFC, I think you should get some kind of easier opponents, right? But that was a very easy opponent for Shara to fight, and that is why he's my one weight here, because I want to see what he can do against somebody like Olajaychuk, who's got Kevin Holland experience, Michelle Pereira experience, Kyle Bahayo experience. Yes, he's lost to those guys, but I think if he takes and learns from these losses, let's keep in mind that Olajaychuk is actually younger than Shara. Shara is the prospect here, but Olajaychuk is a year younger. So I would like to think that he is still improving with these losses, and that's why I'm a little bit more nervous to bet against him here.
Yeah, I hear you. Like, he definitely has, like, Mikhail Jacek, definitely has good experience too in the UFC, like the names you mentioned. But those guys, those dudes, like, he's lost to them though. Kevin Holland, Michelle Pereira, and like it seems like he's beating the dudes, but the dudes he's beat are like, I don't know, like the dudes he has been in the UFC, like Chidi, Kawani, Cody Brundage, Sam Alvey, Shamil, Gamstov. Like, these guys, like Sam Alvey right now, like, dude he honestly, if he did not win against Cameron Graham, in his B2 fight, so no, like this wasn't even the UFC. I'm sorry. Dude, this guy actually gives a run for Tony Ferguson with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He actually lost 8 fights in a row, and he has a draw in the middle. Dustin Sam Alvey. So some of the dudes that Mikhail Jacek has been are actually just not good at all. And then there's Cody Brundage. And so then when he goes against people like Kyle Barajo, as you mentioned, who he himself, like, he is doing better now. And then Michelle Pereira and Kevin Holland. Like, Kevin Holland also, he's just bouncing back in the win column. But That being said, that Kevin Holland fight would have definitely should have been a winnable fight for him as well. But Kevin Holland obviously getting that being crafty with that armbar. Uh, yeah, and McCall has the only way he actually loses to majority of the time is by submission. That definitely is his kryptonite. So that's why if Shara were to implement a little more grappling in this fight, I think it's just 100% his in the taking. Striking wise, I think it's gonna be a little more equally matched. But if Shara just grapples even a little bit, I honestly think the whole fight is his for the taking. And who knows, he may be able to get his first submission win as well. But that being said, yeah, I feel really good with Shara. Obviously more confident than you. He's my four way, and again, mostly because even though Michelle Jacek has the experience, he just doesn't have any wins against notably good people at all. And the people he does have wins against are just really, really bad, actually. Like at least in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But like, you have to admit though, there is something to be said about improving from a loss. Like you take the loss, you learn, you watch the film, you maybe change some things up in the gym or you're coaching, and you try and adjust and move on. So that's kind of what I'm saying. Like Ola Jacek's not 38 and just like trying to finish out his fight contract. He's 29, and I'm sure in his mind he's ready to continue like evolving as a UFC fighter. If that's not his mindset, I question what he's even doing, right? Because in the UFC, that's the point, is to get to being the champion. I guess some people might just be doing it for money, but I'm sure you just go box then, dude. If you're doing it for money, you can make a lot more money doing boxing and take dang near less damage and focus on one aspect of the game. But that's all I was saying in terms of Ola Jacek. Like, totally agree. His opponents, and that's still why I picked Shara, right? Like, I still agree that Shara should win this fight, and I'm excited to see him do some grappling and some jiu-jitsu, man. That would really put him on the radar, I think, and make me excited to see him fight again. So we'll see what he can do. I still think he wins this fight, but I just couldn't get behind like a super confident pick here for at least my personal point of view, just because I think Ola Jacek still has something in the tank that we can watch out for, at least when it comes to like a newcomer to the UFC.
That's fair too, man. Like, because I would mention too, most of his fights too from McCall Jacek ended in the first round, including his losses. So we really don't get to see much from him. Like Kevin Holland, and especially that Michelle Pera fight, really gave him no, like not that much. So I mean, that's just Michelle Pera how he fights. But like he's either won right away in the first round, like the Chinyo Kawani fight, like right away, or loses in the first one. So again, yeah, we're not seeing much of him, but that also does make me think if Shara finishes him, it could be a highly chance that it's in the first round as well.
Yeah, true.
That's what I think. So I give benefit of the doubt to McCall Jacek for not showing enough in the first round, but also makes me think. But again, he's mostly losing by submission as well. So if Shara beats him in the first round, that could be the most likely way. It would have to be a submission. Um, so that being said, yeah, I'm taking Shara. The best way I'm taking it is just KO/TKO, but not in the first round. Just definitely within the two and a half.
Hell yeah. Sounds good, man. So we do agree on that one. And that being said, then we'll go on to my four weight of Saturday afternoon, which I'm going to take us to one of the earlier fights on the card. This is the one and only female fight on the main card. Yeah, I like to bring in some of the female women's MMA fights. It kind of depends. You know, sometimes you got to stay away because, excuse me, when it comes to betting females, it can be really shoddy. I mean, we've seen some crazy upsets within the last year in the UFC when it comes to women's MMA. So only when I'm confident do I like to put these fights, especially as high as my four weight. But let me just remind everybody, I did pick Rose. I've been able to pick women's MMA fighters pretty strongly this year. Obviously not perfectly, as I liked Molly McCann. She was not a weight of mine last week, but I did like Molly McCann last week. She did not get the job done. So nobody's perfect, but I'm just here to say that in general, I'm above 500 on these women's MMA picks. For my four weight, I'm taking Lupi Godinez to beat Mackenzie Dern. I just think I'm going to continue riding the train of Mackenzie Dern's inability to strike, to stand on the feet. She's taken some losses that aren't reflecting so well, losing to Amanda Lemos via decision unanimously, looking really bad on the feet. And then Lemos goes and takes kind of a bad loss to Verna Yandaroba, in which I would look at Lupi Godinez's last fight against Verna a little disappointing because Lupi was winning on the feet and just decided to stay in the grappling game, and she didn't really work that hard to get up when Verna landed takedowns. So now Verna's got 6.5 minutes of control time in a 15-minute fight, and you lose the decision. Yeah, of course. I think Lupi is still the better fighter here. Not in both facets of the game. Of course, Mackenzie Dern is an insane jiu-jitsu finisher, specialist, all of this, all of that. But can Mackenzie Dern get Lupi to the ground? I think not. I think Lupi's 84% takedown defense shows that she is hard to take down. And again, even if she does get taken down, she's gonna, in my opinion, at least need to change. I'm gonna lay some confidence on the fact that she's changing the game plan. Don't go in for random submission attempts. She didn't have any submission attempts on the books against Verna, but what else is she doing other than trying to get a reversal on Verna on the ground? Just get your back to the cage and get up. You were winning the striking match, and I've got some confidence that she is going to do that here against Mackenzie Dern and starch her, get a unanimous decision, similar to how Amanda Lemos was able to do it. Of course, Lemos also still worked in, I should say, some takedowns. There was actually 10 minutes worth of wrestling time in the Lemos versus Dern fight, but Lemos way outstruck Dern. And it's just been a consistent factor. Andrade outstruck Dern before she KO'd her. I mean, it's one of those things where Mackenzie Dern has proven time and time again she cannot win a striking match, and Lupi has the opportunity to make it one here. I'm betting on that here by making her my 4-weight. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, Nick, I agree with you. I agree with you on Lupita, except she is my 1-weight, and the reason is just women's MMA is extremely tough for me in this one alone. Like, I like Mackenzie Dern a lot, and she's on a 2-fight losing streak right now. But that being said, like, her jujitsu skills in general are just so deadly. She can always just bounce back with that alone. But Lupita Godinez in general, though, I think is just the better striker. She's just overall I think she's going to win this via decision, but I'm not that confident because, again, she's never been submitted before, but Mackenzie Dern, again, is so deadly, she could always sink it in. But what I think Lupita, what she will do is she's just overall a better striker than Mackenzie Dern. But I don't know if she's definitely not the best striker Mackenzie Dern has ever fought. That's for sure. And how they match up stylistically, with the striking is Mackenzie Dern lands 3.31 significant strikes per minute, which is actually not bad for mostly being a grappler. But Lupi though, she lands 4.13 significant strikes, and with Mackenzie Dern, here we show that she's mostly a grappler. Even though she lands 3.31 significant strikes per minute, she's absorbing 4.09, while Lupi absorbs 3.58. So Lupi definitely lands more than what she absorbs, while Mackenzie Dern is the complete opposite. She's taking in more than what she's throwing out. And then that being said, she's Lupi though too. She's not afraid to engage in the grappling department too. Mackenzie, which in this one I would take caution just because how dangerous Mackenzie Dern is, and she may welcome Lupi to wanting to take her down. Lupi on average, she goes for on average 3 takedowns per 3-round fight, and Mackenzie Dern, because she's mostly jiu-jitsu, not wrestler. She's not really engaging those takedowns. She almost allows them just to come to her, and she doesn't mind going to her back. Kind of similar, what Paul Craig does. These mostly grappler dudes where they just look like they don't care that they're going to take it down because how comfortable they are off their back. But I think in this case, it's just going to be bad for Mackenzie Dern all around because Lupi can take her down. I think from there, she'll just hold her down and ground and pound her. And then on the feet, I think Lupi is just going to be a little better than Mackenzie Dern, at least enough where I think Lupi's going to land more on the feet than what Mackenzie Dern will. So I don't know if Lupi will put out Mackenzie Dern. She possibly could, and it can be one of the Mackenzie Dern's never. She's only been actually KO/TKO'd once out of her 5 losses. And Lupita, out of her 12 wins, she's only got 1 KO/TKO. So that being said, I think it's going to be Lupita, most likely via decision. She is more of a decision queen than anything. And again, Mackenzie Dern, has not been. She's barely gets put out herself. So if she's gonna lose this, I think it's just gonna be unanimous decision. Um, that being said, I have Lupita winning this by decision, but she is my one weight just because how dangerous Mackenzie Dern is off her back. So that being said, yep, I got Lupita as my one weight.
All right, so we do agree on Loopy there. And yeah, it's just going to need to be a standing match, and she'll be able to get the job done. Um, I just noticed we have a interesting enough comment in the chat from Rick. He's asking regarding a religious question. Look, I don't think religion really does too much. We see that every single card, right? Corey Sandhagen is fighting Umar. They very clearly would not align religiously. So I don't know. That's an interesting question. I'd be curious to see what you would think with other fighters and other scenarios where that comes up. So feel free to let us know. But for the time being, Jose and I do agree that Lupi Godinez for the women's fight there in the main event will be the winner. Let's move on then. So that's my 5 weight, 4 weight, 1 weight. So that just happens to be both of our 5, 4, and 1 weights here. Let's move on to Jose's 3 weight.
Yeah, so for my 3 weight, this is actually going to be the fight between the welterweight bout between Michael Chiesa and Tony Ferguson. Right now, Michael Chiesa, he is a big favorite, and I think the biggest favorite on the card. Right now, he's at minus 590, while Tony Ferguson is at plus 390. And this is crazy because obviously Michael Chiesa is just that high of a favorite, not because how good he is, but because just how terrible Tony Ferguson has been lately. Tony Ferguson, he's lost 7 in a row, and I thought, he's, most people get cut, but because it's Tony Ferguson, obviously that's why he's still in. And a lot of the losses he has are to just legit killers. Obviously starting with Justin Gaethje, but then he's gone through the ringer with Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, Michael Chandler, you name it. But now he's lost most recently to both Bobby Green and Paddy Pimblett, and we're starting to see Paddy Pimblett put his skills more together now. So a lot of these losses are not ill against Tony Ferguson whatsoever. I just think that he just has really tough He's just been giving the top matchups, which is what happens when you're at the top of the food chain. They're going to be giving you all these killers. And Michael Chiesa, he has 3 losses in a row as well. Vicente Luque, Sean Brady, and Kevin Holland. So his loss streak is not obviously as bad as Tony Ferguson's, but he has some pretty good names there. Vicente Luque is a good name. Sean Brady, an up and comer right now in the welterweight division. His only loss right now thus far in the division, in the UFC, I should say, is to the current champ, Bilal Muhammad. And obviously the loss to Kevin Holland as well, which doesn't look too bad. I mean, the fact that submission when Chiesa is a better grappler, I think, than Kevin Holland. But the fact that he lost that to Kevin Holland, I mean, I don't know. I mean, gotta give Kevin Holland more credit, I guess, because he's already won another one against Michael McCall and Chaychak via submission. So that being said, Tony Ferguson, he is he's got submission skills himself, but he's really not been using them as much. He hasn't really submitted anyone in a long time. The last time he's got a submission was against Kevin Lee in 2017. So since then, he's just, I don't know how to say, but he's just almost like a shell of his former self, to be honest. Like his striking isn't as clean and fast as he used to be. He's got sharp elbows, but that being said, like he doesn't throw him nearly as much as he used to. If he gets taken down, if Michael Chiesa takes him down, Tony Ferguson's going to just almost, I think, to some degree, let it happen. And I don't know, like Tony Ferguson can still be a dangerous guy. And I joked around this earlier, like I almost want to go with Tony Ferguson because who loses 8 fights in a row? That's never happened. And but then I just saw Sam Alvey did it once, so it can actually happen. So like anything's possible. So like I'm sticking with Michael Chiesa though for that fact. But if it wasn't for Sam Alvey, I definitely probably would have been more inclined to go with Tony Ferguson. But Michael Chiesa, I think he's going to be the thicker dude. Tony Ferguson is also, he's already 40 years old. He's up there. Michael Chiesa is 36. I just think, I mean, Tony definitely looks his age. I swear to God, I see gray hairs on some of the photos of him. So I like Tony Ferguson a lot. He's a legend, definitely a Hall of Famer. But that being said, I see Michael Chiesa winning probably submission, if not unanimous decision. And Tony Ferguson, even though out of his 10 losses, he's only been KO'd twice. As he's getting older, he's definitely losing his chin, and he's been slept. Even in that submission to Bobby Green, he fell asleep and he was put out in that fight at the weigh-in, and that was after taking a lot of damage on the feet from Bobby Green. So it's just a lot of wear and tear on Tony Ferguson. Just so much wear and tear since that Justin Gaethje fight, and that Justin Gaethje fight alone just takes years off someone's life for sure. And that fight alone was enough damage for anyone's UFC career, to be honest. And so Tony Ferguson, just so much wear and tear. I don't think he has the same chin. I don't think he has the same gas tank. And I just don't think he has the same creative skills, the creative mindset he had to improvise and make combinations so smooth and quick on the spot. I just don't think that's him. So I can see why Michael Chiesa is a big favorite, but Tony Ferguson is still that dog. So if you're looking at an underdog, throw something on him, because like, I don't know, like Tony Ferguson can just be unpredictable and you never know. He can even stop Michael Chiesa from doctor stoppage from his elbows. So if he doesn't put Chiesa out or anything like that, I can just see maybe a doctor stoppage. So, but that being said, I don't know. I think it's just too much risk going with Tony Ferguson. He does not have a good track record whatsoever. He looked good against Michael Chandler, I should say, for a round. He's looked good against a lot of these fighters for split moments, but he may have his moments against Michael Chiesa as well. But overall, hard to not take Michael Chiesa taking this win almost like any way possible. So I'm just going to stick with unanimous decision. I'm going to stick with that. But that being said, what are your thoughts on this fight, Nick?
Man, so I do agree. I have Chiesa as well. I'm a little less confident, just slightly at 2 weight, and I would not go so far as to say that Tony is a live underdog by any means, but I am a lot more confident in some of these other fighters on the card. Of course, more confident Figgy, Lupi, and Umar get the job done, just of course by process of elimination, right? So look, I think Tony is, of course, he's done for. I think there's really no reason to have him fight. He must be asking for it, and the UFC must feel bad. I don't know what other reason. I think you could probably find a fight that works for Tony. It's not Michael Chiesa. I get it though. Chiesa, like for me, Chiesa, like I can't make this bet. It's part of the reason, like I was saying, as far as making him my 2 weight, because Chiesa's also on a 3-fight losing streak. He's really only ever beat like Neil Magny. You know, RDA was a good win too, unanimously. I don't know. He beat Beneil Dariush and choked him out in 2016. Like, Chiesa's like very average, it seems like. Very average. And he's also on a losing streak himself. I do agree that he's for sure got a submission chance here against Tony. Maybe 2 years ago I would have said no way, because Tony doesn't get submitted, but he has now. Tony's gotten submitted by a couple of guys, and one of them being Bobby Green. So, yeah, man, that being said, Tony's not a guy I'm picking, but he's not a guy at this point that I'm still not like, unless it's like a really good fighter, I'm still not here to say, yeah, Tony's absolutely going to get KO'd in round 1 or something crazy. I would definitely say Chiesa by submission or points here.
Yeah, and I think just to like end it off now to Tony Ferguson, like I don't know, like win or lose, he should retire. That's what I feel it as.
Yeah.
Like there's no point. He's already far removed from ever regaining title contention again. He's also past his prime. He's old. If he gets a win, I would say just take this win and ride off into the sunset, because he's walking. If he loses, he's walking out the door like BJ Penn did. Who BJ Penn came back just to lose like 7 in a row. And it's like, why? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why are you doing this? Because, like, it's not only hurting your career, but obviously your physical body itself. So, win or lose, Tony Ferguson should retire, and I feel good with Michael Chiesa. He is my 3 weight.
Sounds good, man. So we do agree on Chiesa there. Yeah, I'm just not like, I'm not overly zealous on him. I do think he gets the job done. I'm just not putting too much of if any, of my own money on that. But yeah, obviously that leads us down to 1 fight remaining, and by process of elimination, that brings the main event into key here. That's of course Corey Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov. and I'm taking Umar here. I'm not going to buck the trend and take Corey Sandhagen just because I think Corey Sandhagen is great. And don't get me wrong, I think there's maybe a little value that you could find here. But because he is plus 220, I think he's obviously the more experienced fighter in the UFC. But does it really matter? Like a lot of these fighters, you'll see them kind of get like fighters that are, maybe similar to Shavkat is who I'm trying to say, or even Kamzat, debatably. Like you get these fights and you dominate everybody. So then when you start to get to the point of needing a ranked opponent, no one wants to fight you. Everybody's kind of like actually scared to fight you. And I kind of feel like Umar is a little like he's kind of getting that. Like now that he's actually kind of dominating people, fighters are like, actually, I don't know if I want to mess with that. Corey Sandhagen has the balls to step up. I got nothing but respect for it, but I just think this is going to be Umar's fight to win. Corey Sandhagen has used his wrestling in the past, and it will be far inferior to Umar and what he's able to bring to the table. And to be honest, I don't think Corey's striking is going to be necessarily out of this like world better than Umar. It's probably a little better, but it's not going to be the KO power, that's for sure. It would be points kind of striking, and I just think we're going to see too much from Umar on the ground to really justify giving Corey Sandhagen a decision win via points when it's all said and done. So, yeah, man, to me, this is a total submission or points bet on Umar to try saving some money because he is minus 310 on the board. But I'm pretty confident he finishes or gets the job done in general. What do you think, Jose?
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. I think Umar is going to take this win as well. He's my two weight just because the reason why he's my two weight is just because I do think Corey Sandhagen's striking is extremely dangerous and slightly better than Umar's. And Corey Sandhagen he can wrestle, as we saw when he fought Rob Font. He obviously was preparing for Umar that fight too. So to be honest, and he hasn't fought since then, which is crazy. So he's really like probably he's had Umar Nurmagomedov probably on his radar this entire time because he was originally here. This is his second camp preparing for Umar. So I think we're gonna get extremely dangerous Corey Sandhagen, like probably the best prepared UFC fighter for Umar is I think what we're gonna see because he's already gone through 2 camps and it's been a year since he's fought. So that's a lot of time to really focus on one guy. And so that being said, it's definitely going to be Umar's toughest test to date as well. And but that being said, Umar's path to victory is going to be his wrestling, 100%. In right, like as I mentioned, Corey Sandhagen has shown that he has better wrestling. He improved his wrestling, but Umar has 100% takedown defense. Hasn't been taken down yet in the UFC, and he averages 4.51 takedowns per 3-round fight. So I think in this one, definitely expect to see Corey Sandhagen to be the one on his butt and do what and Umar's pretty much going to do what Corey Sandhagen did to Rob Font. And that's ultimately what I think is just going to be on the feet too. It's going to be a better matchup. I think Corey Sandhagen is going to land a little more because Corey Sandhagen is also the taller guy. He's 5'11", Umar's 5'8", and Corey just has a 1-inch reach advantage, so not much. But that's why I think that with such a dangerous striker, having that height and reach advantage too just adds that little extra oomph more. So I mean, he's pretty crazy. He can probably catch Umar, and Umar's yet to be knocked out at all. But like Corey Sandhagen could catch Umar in a flying knee, similar to how he did with Frankie Edgar. It could happen, but again, we haven't seen Umar yet be put under these type of situations with such a high level fighter as Corey Sandhagen. So I'm going with Umar on this one. I don't even know. I think he can win this anyway. Like he is a huge submission threat. Corey Sandhagen, out of his 4 losses, only lost once to submission. So I'm just taking Umar for the win on this one. He is my 2-weight because if Corey Sandhagen comes back and wins, if he does end up winning, I think it's going to be a decision as well. So I honestly see this almost like a decision either way. But I'm leaning towards Umar. Obviously, he's my 2-weight, but I'm leaning towards Umar just because I do expect him to implement the wrestling game better than Corey Sandhagen. Even though, again, Corey Sandhagen has had more than enough time to prepare for Umar's wrestling. So that being said, I'm taking Umar as my 2-weight.
Yeah, you do make a good point. I think Corey will be very, very prepared. It kind of goes down to another reason 3 weight for Umar instead of 5 weight. Corey Sandhagen is the real deal. Biggest test Umar's fought. And although I think Sandhagen, might be slightly more well-rounded due to his slight striking advantage, and he still has good wrestling, I just don't think it's going to compare when we see him locked in the cage with Umar. And yeah, we're really going to get a litmus test here. I think we're going to see if Umar is worth the hype here, or if Corey Sandhagen kind of drowns him out. And after Saturday, we'll know who our next contender is really for that division, I think. So.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, yeah, 100%. Like this, a win over Corey Sandhagen is definitely gonna just jump Umar way, way to the top. And I honestly, as I was looking at this, yeah, after seeing Corey Sandhagen lose to Peter Yan, even though he's bounced back and won 3 times, the last best wrestler that Corey Sandhagen probably went against was Peter Yan, and Peter Yan beat him unanimously, and out wrestled him in that one. So I think this may be almost a similar thing actually. So I feel better with Umar, and I actually feel better with Umar probably winning this by unanimous decision.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, man. So that will then do it for us here at Moneyline MMA. We've discussed our 5 weights for Saturday afternoon. Well, really, yeah, Saturday early afternoon. Keep in mind those are daytime fights. But just as a quick recap, the Moneyline MMA lock of the week is going to be Biggie, Davison, Figueiredo with a combined 10 weight points. It's the highest possible. So definitely go and make that bet, because Jose and I both agree I'm on a huge 11-fight win streak. And Figgy's going to get the job done. It's a tough matchup against Chito Vera, no doubt about it. But he has the strong wrestling advantage, the submission advantage. I understand Chito's not been finished, but you just never know when it comes to the submission game. Of course, you likely not to get strikes. So even go as far as to take Figgy by submission or points. That being said, outside of that, go ahead and look at taking Lupi Godinez or Shara Magomedov as other co-favorites from Moneyline MMA. But as always, we will be back next week. The UFC is not taking a break all the way through our next pay-per-view fight, which is, of course, the middleweight bout between Izzy and Dricus, which is occurring in a couple of weeks. In terms of fights coming up after this UFC Abu Dhabi card, we're going to see Marcin Tybura versus Sergey Spivak 2, and that'll be back in the UFC Apex. And that'll actually be the only card we have in between our next pay-per-view, with Izzy fighting Dricus du Plessis. So that will be very fascinating. We still don't have a technical, well, maybe we do, but I don't know if I can see it yet. If we have a main event for the fight card after that. So in any case, make sure to tune in next week, as Jose and I will return to give heat and ways to make money on the UFC fights. Have a good week.